Well, I can do it before we go back, that is.
All right, before we get started, Dr. Houghton, did you?
Yes, sir.
Say-
So board, we had a family that had a fire in the Temperance, Louisville area. Four students, we have one at AAC, one at the high school, a pre-care at Amherstell, and then Temperance, they're a Temperance family. Lost everything, so they're working with Red Cross, and we're gonna try to get clothes and things like that. So as before we started, just wanna think about those folks, recognize them before we do our moment of silence.
Thank you, sir. All right, we'll call this meeting to order. Let's please rise for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. Now join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, well, I want to thank all the board members for taking your time to be here. This is not our normal board meeting tonight, but we do have a short agenda, but it's a lot on the agenda tonight. So, board, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Second.
All right, we have a motion. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. Any opposed? All right, we have an agenda. All right, so first up is consent agenda. Board, what's your pleasure?
I make the motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. Any opposed? All right, consent agenda is passed. All right, moving on to 3.01, discussion and consideration revision of proposed 2026-2027 school operational budget. So I wanted to bring the board and the community up to date on where we are with the budget process. I'll first start with the state. The state has not yet approved a budget, and it doesn't look like they're going to do their work on that anytime soon. So we're kind of in a holding pattern for that. But the county board of supervisors did meet on Tuesday and did finalize their budget process. They set the tax rate, the property tax rate, at 56 cents. And also approved the budget allocation for us. We were asking for 1.9 million, of which that was broken down. Essentially, we needed 1 million of that to bring back the CIP allocation that we had put into operational for this year. We needed roughly 600,000 to recover the LCI, the local composite index change. That's where the state essentially decides, based on what data, I don't know, but that the locality itself can afford to pay an additional amount. In our case, it was 560.
561, I believe, yes, sir.
560,000 to be as exact as I can at the moment. So again, roughly 1.6 million. The additional ask in the 1.9 was we were asked to do a 3% raise across the board for our staff to match the county's 3%. And so that's kind of what broke down the 1.9%, just as a recap for the board and anyone listening to tonight's meeting. Let me first say I do not envy in the slightest the work that the Board of Supervisors have had to do through this budget process. It has not been easy for them. There's a lot of discussion and conversation about the budget process. I can say Dr. Hoden, myself, I made you a doctor, Mr. Arasi, met with a few of the board members on several occasions to discuss the budget process and what our needs are. And ultimately, the board approved a funding for the school division of an additional $1.1 million. And so I first want to say I'm grateful for that, right?
Yes, sir.
They could have left the funding the same, and that would have made it even more drastic for us, all right? But the reality is that even as grateful as we are with that, we still now have some difficult decisions to make as it relates to the budget, because we are, if you're looking at 1.6, if the state gives us the 3%, then we'll be back down to the 1.6, which means we'd be about 500,000 short. And so that's still a lot to make up, and whether it's made up through additional cuts through CIP or positions, that's the decisions we've got to make as a board. So I've asked the superintendent to put some thoughts together that we'll discuss in closed session, because obviously, anytime we're talking about individual positions, we can't do that in public. So but that's kind of where we are with the budget process. I wanted to make sure that you were aware of exactly where we are, to let our community know as well. And I guess I'll finish up by saying this, is that what everyone needs to know is that this board is 100% focused on how we have the best impact in instruction, right? Meaningful instruction for our kids, for our students, right? So whatever decisions we end up determining in the end result of this process, it's going to be because we as a board felt like that's the best direction for our students in the long term. So, again, it's not going to be an easy process. I don't look forward to it, but it's a process that the hand we've been dealt, and so that's kind of what we have to do. So, any questions or comments on that, Ms. Justice?
Yes, sir. Thank you. So I had the opportunity to watch the meeting, not the whole meeting, just the school part. And the question that I was having a bit of trouble with was the part when we say bringing back money into CIP. I'm not certain I understand that. When I hear that, I think we're putting money into savings. And
No, it's not savings. It was, and Kim, please correct me where I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. But we pulled that money out of our CIP line for things like buses. Mm-hmm. Those are things that would have been capital expenses to put back into operational to help us in this budget year. So we put those expenses off to help us this year, and so we needed that money back in our budget to help us to meet our operational needs this year and our CIP needs, because we haven't bought buses. We don't have enough new buses, right? Mm-hmm. And so we got to make sure that our fleet is working. An example I gave Dr. Hoden, and we'll talk about it tonight, is, and I don't know how many bus routes we have, but if we have 100 bus routes and we have 98 working buses and 5 that are always in the shop, well, we can't put off buying a bus again, right? We've got to buy a bus.
We have 57 buses on the road every day, and we travel over 1.1 million miles in a school year.
but don't we own 75 buses? Is that what I
Yes,
heard?
that's correct. You have to have so many for spares so that if a bus goes down.
Okay, so we currently have 75 buses. Are they all
50
working?
57, well, it depends on the day.
Okay.
So, and then they also have to go in the shop. on a
Okay.
daily basis for their, for
So
their
we have
checks.
57 that are on the
Routes,
road.
every day.
Routes.
Yes, ma'am.
On the road every day. And does that mean if we have 75 total, that's an extra 20 to fill in? I'm not certain I understand.
Yeah, so you have to have so many spare buses so that when the mechanics do what's called a 45-day check, that when that bus has to come in and they have to physically put their eyes on it and do an inspection on that bus every 45 days. So if something were to happen to one of those buses and they have to pull it out of service, we have to have a spare. Just like in the mornings, if something happened and the drivers do a pre-check on their bus, if something happens and they find something wrong with that bus, they have to do a pre-check. We could also have things like recalls. We've had as many buses as 6 or 8 buses on a recall. So if all those buses are at Sunny's, that we have to have enough buses in spare to use while those buses are being fixed.
And so,
Dr. Houghton, what's the age of our fleet? Like, what's the average age?
I could get that for you, but we try to have buses no older than 15 years, but we have several that are over 15 years old on the road.
okay, another question. One of the things that I heard from the Board of Supervisors last night was if we could go ahead and not do the CIP, but because the budget from the legislature has not come yet, and we won't have it until July. What I thought I heard them saying was that in July, when we find out what that budget is, to come back to them at that point for that money for the CIP. And so my question is, if we did that, would that then allow us to continue to get these positions that we need? Do you hear what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's a conversation that we need to have, and I did speak with the chairman, and he reiterated that exact message to me, that they're hoping to wrap up their audit. And so based on the findings in the audit, if there are additional funds available at a later date, and depending on what the state does with their budget, that the Board of Supervisors is certainly willing to come back and revisit any of those CIP allocations.
And to answer your question, Ms. Justice, in the board retreat document, you have a sheet that I provided with all the buses, the age of those buses, and how many are on the road, so. And the issue, like we tried to explain to the Board of Supervisors, is sometimes it's a misnomer that, a bus is it might be a capital thing, but we have to have it in the operational budget. Because if you do the math, we should be buying 4 to 5 buses a year to recycle those every 15. We're only getting 2 and maybe sometimes 3. Now, we were lucky a couple years ago, we were able to purchase several used buses, and that kind of got us a little bit over the hump. But if we continue to only buy 2 per year, then in 15 years, we've only bought 30 buses, and that's half. So that's why we really need to keep them in the operational budget. And it's a hard decision because we have to have people and we have to concentrate on curriculum, but we also need to get students to school and focus on our operational. So it's a very, very, very delicate situation.
Yeah, it's definitely a balance, right? You can't operate a school division if you can't get the kids there, and if you don't have the facilities in the shape where you can have instruction. So, I mean, all of those pieces are important and part of the puzzle and something we need to take into consideration. Any other thoughts or comments on that? All right, so we'll get some more information later on about that, but I wanted to get everybody up to date on it. All right, so hearing no more comments on that, we're going to move on to public comments. No one signed up, I assume. No one's here in the audience. Would either you two like to come up and address the board? You're good? All right. And I wanted to put public comments on there for tonight's meeting in case the public did want to come talk about the budget. That's why I had that added. So, all right, with that, that brings us to item number 5, closed meeting. So, or is there a motion?
Motion to go into closed?
Oh,
Yes, sir.
Sorry.
Pursuant to Section 2.23711A1 of the Code of Virginia, it's recommended the board convene a closed meeting for the following. A1, personnel matters specifically for discussion of employees 1 through 750 regarding assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, discipline, resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of any public body, and discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, specifically being the review and discussion of applications and development of interview questions for the position of superintendent.
Just one quick point of clarification. That doesn't just limit us to talking about superintendent, right? We're able to talk about the other positions?
The 1 through 7.
One through- okay, perfect.
750, yes, sir.
Just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, so we had a motion. Do we have a second? All right, so we have a motion and a second to go into close. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Vote aye. We are in closed.